It's midnight. You know you should be asleep. You've known for an hour. And yet here you are, phone in hand, or halfway through something on a screen, telling yourself you'll stop in just a few more minutes. Again, this isn't a mystery unique to you. It happens to an enormous number of people across every age group and lifestyle. And the interesting thing is that most of them aren't confused about whether sleep matters. They know it matters. They've read the articles. They've felt the consequences. The knowledge is completely intact. So why doesn't it change anything? The psychology has some precise answers, and they're more interesting than "you just need more willpower." Let's start with something that has a name. In 2020, researchers published a study that formally identified and named a behavioral pattern that millions of people recognized immediately: revenge bedtime procrastination. The concept is straightforward. People who have little control over their time during the day, because of work, family obligations, social demands, or any other structure that consumes their hours, deliberately delay going to sleep in order to reclaim a sense of personal time and freedom. The word revenge is the key part. This isn't passive procrastination, the kind where you simply lose track of time. It's an active, if largely unconscious, resistance to the feeling that the day used you up without giving you anything back. You gave your hours to everything and everyone that needed them. And now, finally, it's quiet. No one is asking for anything. And some part of you is not willing to give that up just because a clock says you should. For many people, the hours between 10 and midnight, or midnight and 2, are the only portion of the entire day that feels genuinely unstructured. No meetings. No messages that need immediate responses. No tasks with real deadlines attached. No one's needs competing with your own. In that window, the day's accumulated roles and obligations fall away. And something becomes available that wasn't available before: the experience of just being, without purpose or performance attached. Telling someone in that state to simply go to sleep for health reasons is asking them to voluntarily surrender the only part of the day that felt like theirs. That's a harder trade than it sounds. There is also something worth noting about the specific guilt that tends to accompany this pattern. Because most people who stay up late don't just do it. They do it and feel bad about it. Which makes the next night slightly worse because now they're tired and still facing the same dynamic. The guilt is real, but it's also somewhat misdirected. Framing the behavior as a personal failing, as something to be corrected through better character, misses what's actually driving it. The behavior makes complete sense given the conditions producing it. The guilt, in most cases, is pointed at the symptom while the actual cause goes unexamined. The second piece explains why, even when people genuinely want to sleep earlier, the wanting doesn't translate into doing. The human brain does not process time the way a spreadsheet does. It doesn't weigh a benefit that arrives in 10 years the same way it weighs a benefit that arrives right now, even if, rationally, the future benefit is clearly larger. Psychologists call this present bias, and it's one of the most reliably documented patterns in human decision-making. The mechanism underneath it is called hyperbolic discounting. As a potential reward or consequence moves further into the future, the brain assigns it less and less weight, not linearly, but steeply, dropping off quickly and then flattening out. The practical consequence is that the health benefits of sleeping 8 hours tonight, better concentration tomorrow, lower long-term disease risk, improved mood over time, are real but distant. They exist somewhere in the future where the brain's valuation system doesn't reach very well. The cost of closing the laptop right now, on the other hand, is immediate and concrete. The comfort being surrendered exists right this second. The show that won't get finished, the quiet that will end, the feeling of having a few minutes more that are genuinely free. These things are present and specific in a way that abstract future health simply isn't. This is not a failure of intelligence or self-awareness. It's a feature of a brain that evolved over hundreds of thousands of years in environments where immediate consequences mattered enormously and distant future consequences barely mattered at all. The neural architecture wasn't designed for the trade-offs of modern life. It was designed for a world where the most important thing was almost always whatever was happening right now. Which is why information on its own so rarely changes the behavior. People who stay up late despite knowing better aren't missing the knowledge. They're experiencing a mismatch between what they understand and what their brain's decision-making systems actually respond to in the moment. Knowing is not the same as feeling, and it's feeling that drives what happens at midnight. The third piece is the one that goes deepest, and the one that changes how you see the whole pattern. For a significant number of people who stay up late regularly, the nighttime hours serve a psychological function that has nothing to do with whatever they're watching or scrolling through. The content is almost beside the point. What they're actually doing is transitioning, moving from one psychological state to another. During the day, most adults inhabit a series of roles: employee, parent, partner, friend, member of various social systems, each with its own expectations and demands. Moving between these roles requires ongoing adjustment, calibrating your presentation, managing other people's needs, staying attuned to what each context requires. It's not dramatic work, but it's constant, and it has a cumulative cost that most people don't consciously register because they're too busy doing it. When the night gets quiet, when the messages stop and the obligations pause, those roles begin to recede, and in the space that opens up, something that was temporarily compressed by the day's demands starts to expand again. A sense of self that isn't defined by any particular role or function. Psychologists sometimes describe this as ego restoration, the gradual recovery of a more integrated, less performance-oriented experience of oneself after an extended period of role-based functioning. It is also worth noting what people actually do during these late hours, because it's rarely the most intellectually stimulating or meaningful activity of their day. It's often passive, low effort, and easily interruptible. And that's not an accident. The point isn't the content. The point is the absence of demand. Anything that can be done without effort, without accountability, without producing anything for anyone else qualifies. The activity is just the vessel for the experience of unclaimed time. Research on how people describe their experience at different times of day has found something consistent. People report feeling most like themselves late at night. Not most productive, not most energetic, most themselves. The filtering and self-presentation that social life requires have been set down. What remains is quieter and less curated, but also more genuine. For people whose days are heavily structured and socially demanding, that window of genuineness matters enormously. Going to sleep means closing it. And some part of them, operating below the level of conscious decision, keeps finding reasons to keep it open a little longer. So let's put the whole picture together. Staying up late despite knowing better isn't primarily a discipline problem. It's the behavioral output of three things happening at once. A day that didn't leave enough space for genuine freedom. A brain that weights present experience far more heavily than future consequence. And a self that needs time to exist outside of its roles, and has learned that the only reliable time to do that is after everyone else has gone to sleep. The solution that actually works, when people find one, is rarely about forcing earlier bedtimes through willpower. It's about building enough genuine space into the day that the night doesn't have to compensate for all of it. When the day contains real pockets of autonomy and unstructured time, the compulsion to steal hours from sleep tends to ease on its own. Staying up late isn't a failure of discipline. It's a signal that somewhere in the day, something that should have been yours never was. If that resonated, leave a comment. I'd like to hear your thoughts. I'll see you in the next video.